Joining us now is Vanessa Neumann. I was really looking forward to her being on today. Vanessa is the president of Asymmetrica. She has been in South America following politics there, very active for a very long time, has a business there. She knows what's going on. Vanessa Neumann, great to have you with us.
Great. Thank you for having me on.
It's a fiery day. So listen, these people that are coming from South America saying they're fleeing gangs, they're coming from El Salvador, Honduras, they're claiming asylum. What can those governments do? What can Mexico do?
Okay. Thanks for having me on. Listen, I'm not going to agree with everything you say, but that's okay. You and I, that's fine. What can the governments do? So we need to understand what's really causing the problem, right? So I think that, these people are fleeing terrible violence at home. Some of the gangs, like MS-13, MS-13 was actually formed inside the United States by refugees from the civil wars of the 80s in Central America. And now these countries in the middle, where a lot of in Central America, where these people are coming from, it's more what they call, the immigration is more what we call OTMs, which is other than Mexicans. So the Mexican migration into the U.S. has reversed. It's a lot, you have more people are actually going back into Mexico than are actually entering from Mexico. What you see entering the Mexican-U.S. border nowadays is predominantly more Central Americans, Guatemalans, Hondurans, Salvadorans, right? And Salvador is where MS-13 comes from. These guys are totally overwhelmed because gangs have taken over their home turf. Because what you see is that they have these local gangs, but now we have what they call super gangs that are now working with the drug cartels. So they are more powerful, more violent. They have corrupted the police forces and the government, which are totally overwhelmed because these guys have more money than their governments. So the violence has just eaten away. And this is a little bit sort of a consequence of the changes in the economics of drug use, right? So it changes in the drug business. So when in the bad old days of Pablo Escobar, the drug cartels used to pay their service providers, like you pay your trucker or you pay whatever, right, in money. Now when they go to Central America, they're often paying them in cocaine or other forms of drugs. So what that means is, instead of you just taking your money, sticking it in your bank account and buying your kid a gift or whatever, as a criminal will do, instead they have to find locals to distribute, to buy. So everywhere where this cocaine or these other drugs pass, it fuels a change in consumption patterns. It means you have to kill other people in order to fight for those distribution points. And that's what these people are fleeing. So these people, from their perspective, they have two things that are forcing them out. Three things. One is drug consumption north, which is a lot of it is in the U.S., and Mexico as well. Mexico has a growing middle class, which means more cocaine use, and the U.S., and then the guns flowing down. So a lot of the gangs then also bring guns down from the U.S. into Central America, and they're being used in the violence. And then the third problem is that their own countries and police force are corrupted by either fear, because they'll just come and kill your family, right? The criminals will just come and kill the policeman's family, or money, right, because they're underpaid. So they're fleeing that into the U.S., so we have to really get at the cause of the problem. The cause of the problem is corruption, too many guns in the wrong hands, and drug consumption.
So, Vanessa, if they're coming to the United States, not to be lawbreakers, right? They're coming to flee. Yep. They're coming out of fear. They're coming to flee persecuted situation.
Yeah.
So, and they're traveling, thousands of miles, right? I mean, how far is it from?
And it's very dangerous.
Right.
These guys undertake really dangerous journeys.
Right. So they navigate their way through a very dangerous terrain. There's sexual attacks that go along the way with the women. Their children are in tow. They're trying to feed them. They're navigating their way thousands of miles over mountains and bridges and whatever. They have very little to eat. They finally get near the United States. If they were doing this the right way, they would simply go to the legal port of entry in San Diego or El Paso. They're all over the place, and apply for asylum. If they did that, they would be protected. They would go into a holding facility with their family. Nobody would be separated. Nothing would happen to them. They would go through the process, all right? Instead, they bypass the legal means of asylum into the port of entry, and they come illegally in the United States. And then if they don't get apprehended, they're not heard from again. And if they are apprehended, they throw up their hands and claim asylum. So here's my question. If you're fleeing violence and you're fleeing persecution, why wouldn't you do it through the legal means? You've already navigated thousands of miles. You've gotten to San Diego. It's incomprehensible to me, after traveling 1,000 miles over 3 countries and dangerous terrain with your children, that you now can't figure out where the legal port of entry is, and you simply break through a rancher's fence. That doesn't make any sense to me. So why don't they do it legally?
You know what? Honestly, I can't answer that question. I really don't know. I don't know if it's because they don't have enough information, because they know that they will be, because they fear that they will be detained and sent back. You know, I don't know if it's because legal means don't generally work in their own home countries. I mean, you have, as I was saying, going back to what I was saying before, you know, when you have, drug cartels and gangs that have totally taken over your system of law and order, you know, you don't generally have faith in anybody's system of law and order. You know, you think it doesn't work, so maybe you'll think it won't work in the U.S. Or they're not told about it. Don't forget that smuggling people is a business. So, and they use these poor, desperate people. So you will get people who will, and I kind of empathize because I understand. For instance, I had family that was in Europe that fled the Nazis and then fled the Soviets, the communists during and then after World War II. So, and you kind of say to somebody, "I need to get out of here. How do I get out? How do I move from this terrible place to someplace else?" Right? And you usually hire like a smuggler. You know, somebody says, "Hey, give me X amount of money, and I will get you on a train that will then get you on a boat, and then there'll be some guy who'll let you in," right? And then often that turns out not to be true. Then when you get to the border, there is no guy who'll let you in, and it's a lie, but they've already taken your money. So I think that's also part of the problem, is that the people are entering they don't understand how the U.S. works. How could they? They don't have good information. They're desperate, and they have two things. One, they believe whatever they're told by the people who've told them how to get there, like hop on the train, join this group, etc. What we call them coyotes, right, is the term for the people smugglers. And then they'll abandon them at the border, or they just think that the U.S. won't let them in legitimately and they want to get in no matter what, which is not good. And then also they believe maybe that, they don't, as I said, they don't come from a place where law and order and immigration works. So they just get in anyway. I agree with you that it would be better if they did it legally and they entered through the main ports. I am very disturbed by the separation of the kids. It's not good, and it would be better if we had facilities where they could be processed in some sort of a, small family setting. I think the U.S. knows how to do this, and I think it can be fixed.
So what happens if they apply for asylum? And let's follow your line of thinking here. Mm-hmm. This is also, some of the people have debated on CNN. Let's follow your line of thinking. So we spend the money and we build these brand new facilities or makeshift them where if you come to the country and you're caught, you're apprehended at the border and you throw up your hands and say asylum, okay, you should have gone through the regular process, but here's what we're going to do. While we check everything out, we're going to put you in this holding facility with your minor children. You'll be in this area here. It's a facility. You can't get out, okay? Because you broke the law. I mean, I'm sorry, you broke the law. We don't have an open border situation.
I think people understand that. I think it's
you go in there with your children.
Mother's arms, which is a little bit hard.
You go in there with your children.
Being in a facility while you're being legally processed is something
so
people understand and expect.
You get processed, and then it's determined that you don't meet the standards for asylum. What happens?
Yeah. It's very hard to meet a standard for asylum. Very hard. I know, because I know a few people who've done it. As I said to you, I was born in Venezuela, which is a country now that's, under a brutal dictatorship, mass starvation, huge emigration, and torture, and just all sorts of levels of horror. And so I know a few people who've come to the U.S., and some have claimed asylum, some successfully and some not successfully. And for them to get asylum, the ones who were successful, had to show that their lives were specifically threatened on at least one, preferably two occasions, and you need letters from witnesses to the event. So you need to show that your life was actually in danger, or there was an attempt, at least one, or if not two attempts on your life, and that if you were to go back, you would be killed. And it's a very high and very specific legal standard, right? So, and I think because of the Venezuela situation and also the Central America situation, there's the American asylum system is overwhelmed. There's just too many demands. So most of those people coming to cross the border won't meet the asylum standard probably, or possibly they could, because almost everyone has had a family member murdered or kidnapped or been threatened, but they might not meet that standard of get us two letters from relatives who were witnesses to the event, that kind of thing.
Let me just interject here a second,
problem.
Vanessa.
And they're just looking to, as you say, to get in no matter what, even illegally.
We're with Vanessa Neumann. She is president of Asymmetrica, and she is an expert on Central American politics and the goings-on in South America. So, Vanessa, go ahead. So if they don't get approved for asylum, Vanessa, what happens to them?
Well, they go back. I mean, they have to go back to their country. They're shipped out. I'm not sure whether they can never come back to the U.S. or it's 10 years before they could attempt to reenter the U.S. for any reason. Like, let's just say, they have a son who goes to school and, graduates and becomes a doctor, and they want to go visit the son, or, even in a very legitimate scenario, they can't. Like, once you're blacklisted, you're blacklisted. But we still have to get at the problem. The problem is you have to look at what's driving these waves of people to come to the U.S. Nobody really wants to undertake a 2,000, or a kilometer or 1,000-mile train ride, bus ride, hike over rough terrain with violence and drug cartels and rape and everything else. Most people would rather just stay at home with, into a foreign culture where you're going to be discriminated against, don't speak the language, and don't understand it. People would rather stay home. What they would rather stay home is, what we need to fix is to make them want to stay home. To make them want to stay home, we have to resolve the violence in Central America, which is the drugs. It's the drugs and the guns. There's too many guns in too many hands of too many criminals. And they're mostly coming from the U.S. They're just unregulated. They're just being smuggled down, and we have the money and the drug consumption. And once you get rid of that, and you have to strengthen the law and order and the capacity, the U.S. is trying to do this, right? You have military programs to try and secure Central America.
We can't guard the world, Vanessa. I mean, this country is bankrupt. I mean, there's 7 billion people across the world, right? 7 billion. I'm sure that if you took a poll right now, right, 6.5 billion of those 7 would love to come to the United States and be taken care of. So it's like, now you want us to solve, Guatemala's problems. I mean, they got a government, they got to solve it. I don't know what the problem is. I mean, I get what you're saying. It all makes sense, and I guess that's
well,
why we have a State Department.
Well,
but
stop the drug consumption would be a good thing.
Well, the first thing we're letting these people.
We got to solve the drug problem in this country.
Well, and you know what?
It affects us. It affects the region. It affects so many different things. That's really what needs. I mean, needs to happen.
You want to police the world. I mean, I don't want to do that. I mean, Guatemala's got to figure this out. So does El Salvador. I mean, we can help, but look, everybody wants to come to the United States, and the problem is the gangs that are there that are causing all this. Now they're coming to the United States as a result of these policies. I'm out of time. More information at Vanessa Neumann. Follow her on Twitter. I'll be right back.